Okay, so today I'm going to talk to you about things to consider when you're working while you're pregnant. So there are a few things to consider primarily, and that is looking at your schedule. What does that mean for your sleep schedule? How much sleep are you getting? How much physical demand? What are you doing physically at work? What kind of chemical potentially exposure that you're getting? What potential is there for you to be injured at work, and the level and amount of noise that you're going to be expecting to be around. But that all said, the main things that you really want to keep in mind for you as an individual is, are you getting enough sleep? Are you getting enough support? That's mental, physical, financial, everything, the support level that you have. And is your stress manageable and down and low enough to where it's not adding and overwhelming you and creating problems? Those are the things, those three things, stress, sleep, and support, are the most effectual when it comes to having potential complications during pregnancy as a result. That's why when it comes to when should you start backing off on work, when should you take work off altogether, when should you take a day off here and there, how much time should you take off, that is going to be very individual to you. And those are the things that you need to consider primarily for you, making sure that those are in line with whatever decision it is that you decide to do. So, going back to the first few things that I mentioned, where we broke down the individual things, the schedule. When you have a shift schedule or a schedule that's like a nighttime schedule, they mention looking at that because that can tend to mess with your sleep schedule. You want to make sure you're getting 7 to 8 hours a night, ideally, of good sleep. You need that to make sure that your body and your baby can be as healthy as possible. And they're just kind of not very helpful when it comes to that, those types of schedules. And then, of course, sleep, we've talked about that. Physical activities. So if you're bending and lifting and having physical exertion at work, that's not necessarily a bad thing, particularly if you're already used to it. But if that's going to mean that you're rushing around and doing a lot more, especially in your third trimester, your balance starts to get off a little bit more, and you could run the risk of being injured a little bit more. So keep that in mind. Is this something that might happen? Are you going to be running around on slippery floors? Are you going to feel like you're under the gun and have to kind of rush while you're carrying things? And physical exertion compounded with added stress or other problems can start to then create problems during pregnancy. Chemical exposure, obviously, so if you're around chemicals that you're inhaling, that could be bad for you and or the baby. If you're potentially coming into contact with chemicals that could be bad for you or the baby, those are things to consider, and you will have to talk to your employer about accommodating and placing you in a different area where you're not going to be dealing with those exposures. Injury, we kind of already touched on. Again, that's something that you'll want to talk to your employer about, things that you can do to adjust your tasks and adjust, your work environment to make sure that it's keeping you and your baby safe. Noise. So, high frequency noises are okay, generally speaking, for the baby. It's the lower frequencies, like household blenders. If you're in an environment that's like a blender going off or worse all day, then you're going to probably want to reconsider your environment, see what can be done, if anything, to put you in a quieter area where you may not be potentially causing hearing loss with the baby. You not causing it, but the environment doing that. So those are the things you want to keep in mind. Remember that the law protects you from being discriminated, fired, because of pregnancy-related needs. If you need time off, If you need different accommodations like the ones that we talked about, more bathroom breaks, the ability to keep water on hand, a chance to take a break a little more frequently when you need it, you are protected by law that they are not allowed to fire you for those reasons or discriminate against you. That is the PDA, Pregnancy Discrimination Act. And you've also got something called FMLA, which is the Family Medical Leave Act, which allows you to have time unpaid but protected off work. You will not lose your job during that time frame. Short-term disability is also an option, although in Michigan it's not a guarantee, but it is something that you can also look into if you need added time off. But remember that a lot of this is individual and it requires you checking in with yourself, with your midwife, and other professionals who are on your support team. And do that frequently, and you'll be good.